The creatures in the story are toys. They're toys, but the woods are real. And the size is wrong. The bear should be smaller. Size of a little brother. There. Yes. Yes, that's it.
Blue, are we writing a book? I thought we were just having fun.
We're writing a book and we're having fun.
I didn't know you could do both at the same time. You don't usually look like you're having fun while you're writing.
And that's a clip from Goodbye Christopher Robin. I'm delighted to say that it stars Domhnall Gleeson and Margot Robbie are here. Margot, hello.
Hello.
Domhnall, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
It's very nice to see you. How was the premiere then? Was it all fun and fabulous?
It was actually a really special night because it was the first time I'd seen the film in its entirety, and I was sitting next to Domhnall and we're kind of looking back on this little chapter of our lives suddenly on screen, and hearing the cinema kind of sniffle in unison as the tears flowed at the end was oddly satisfying.
So you went to the premiere and stayed and watched it all. You didn't sneak out the back straight away.
No, I wanted to see. I was the same as Margot. I also Carter Burwell did the music for it, and I'm a huge fan of his work. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the film with that, and and graded and everything, which I hadn't seen, and then just experience it with an audience. I think people find it hard to lie. When they're just expressing themselves through either laughing or crying or deathly silence. And there were loads and loads of laughs, first of all, which really was a nice kind of thing to find out, that people did find it kind of charming in a funny way. And then, lots of tears at the end. So I'm happy. It'll probably be the last time I watch it for a while, because self-loathing becomes too difficult to bear.
Yeah.
But it was nice
you spoke about this last time you were on the show was for Ex Machina, and the self-loathing bit came up then, about how you always thought you ruined films.
Yeah.
Did you feel you ruined this one?
I have my issues with it, yeah, but I think that's just part of the learning experience, and I think the film is strong enough. I think it's got something genuinely pure to say, as part of a film called About Time,
Richard Curtis
with
film,
Richard Curtis, that has really hung around. It's one of those films where it's meant something to people, and it carried some weight that I think at the time a lot of people can be sniffy about, because it was a romantic comedy, or this is a period film. And if it matters to people, that's kind of the best thing you can do. And I can feel that this matters to people when they see it, which is lovely.
And is that how it feels to you, Margot, that this is a film which has got weight and heft that will stay with people?
It does. It's a very moving film. When I first read the script, it really struck a chord with me. It was charming and magical, but it also had those more serious themes behind it, and they were handled in such a subtle but sophisticated way. I was so impressed with Frank's writing.
It's Frank Cottrell Boyce who did the script,
yeah.
Who is a marvel.
He's amazing, incredible. So no, it does have that. It really moves you. It's people are crying at the end, but you're half crying out of joy, or I don't know. I think it's just very emotive.
Maybe we should actually say what the story is. I mean,
let's keep it a secret and just let people wonder what we're talking about.
Well, I suppose the title is a bit of a spoiler.
Yes.
To an extent, but anyway, Domhnall plays Alan Milne, A.A. Milne, and Margot plays Daphne. Is it de Selencourt? Is that her?
Well, I just go by name? Daphne Milne in the film, yeah.
But that sounds somehow more important if you're Daphne de Selencourt.
Why did she take your last name?
I have no idea. It was a silly thing to do.
So pick up the story, just tell the story that the film explains.
I suppose we start with the letter being delivered, which is what every parent... We start kind of at the end of the film, so it's not really a spoiler, is it? No, them getting the letter delivered that everybody worries about at that time, post-World War II, about their son. The letter's delivered, and then we flash back to the very beginning to Alan himself having been in the war, arriving home after World War I, suffering with trauma and damage, trying to get back into being a writer and trying to get back into being a husband, with a very strong wife played by Margot. Strong woman played by Margot, I shouldn't say wife. And but I did. then they have a child, and it was a very different time after World War I, and that was a very traumatic experience for Margot's character, childbirth. So they're both suffering. They're both trying to connect with the world and with each other, and struggling with that. And then a child comes along that, frankly, they're not really ready for, I think. And they kind of leave this child on its own. Over the course of the film, the child begins to bring out the beauty and to kind of save Alan in particular. And he starts being able to be creative again, get over his post-traumatic stress disorder, and the gift to the world is Winnie the Pooh. And
the child is, of course, Christopher Robin. How would you explain your relationship with your son? A lot of people are asking what it was like to play such an unlikable character, who I actually really loved, and who I think just loved her husband so much. I think that she really saw her position or her role in life as his wife, and to be the best wife possible. And even to the extent that she says she had
their child to cheer him up. You know, it's not, she didn't have a child because she wanted a child. She did it because she thought that's what he wanted. And, you know, in doing so, she is, through a modern day gaze, it would seem she's a very neglectful mother, but she's also very much a product of her time, and parenting for an aristocratic English woman in the 1930s was very different to how it is now, and much more hands-off. It wasn't unusual to spend half an hour with your child in the morning and maybe again in the evening, and the rest of the time they're with the nanny. And you know, but the thing I really wanted to, you know, show in Daphne was that she loved those moments with her child because she loved her child so much. She truly did. So those half an hour time slots she would spend with him were magical for both of them, I think, and she'd do voices for the characters and kind of bring them to life.
And there's a moment where Christopher Robin says he prefers you doing the voices to his dad doing the voices.
Yes, I can't help but smirk when I hear that line in the movie. I'm like, yes.
And I can't help but cringe. Devastated.
And we should mention the boy who plays Billy Moon, as he's referred to throughout, because that's what you call Christopher Robin. Will Tilston, he's fantastic. I mean, he was utterly delightful. Looks exactly like the Christopher Robin you imagine from the Winnie the Pooh books. When you're dealing with a movie which turns on the impact of fame on a small child, how do you go about on a film set working with a small child who's about to get very famous?
Well, I mean, in a way, it's not our responsibility. He's got, you know, that he's got good parents. He's got really, really good parents. He had really good people looking after him.
The funny thing is about a film set, and I don't know why after 10 years I still can't wrap my head around it. I forget the repercussions of what we're doing day in, day out. When I'm on a film set and we're working, I forget that it's something we're going to show the world, and I forget that this little boy that we're hanging out with, who is this brilliant, capable actor on set, is going to be thrust into the limelight. I just never remember those things while we're in the moment, and it's not until moments like last night at the premiere that it kind of strikes me that, oh, what we were doing is now on display for the whole world to see and criticize if they want, and not only that, but to scrutinize Will. And you know, it is ironic that throughout the film we do kind of explore the notion of fame for a small child, and that is a prospect, obviously, in Will's life now, but he's so capable, he's so mature, he's like an old soul, and yet has the wide-eyed innocence that, you know, awesome little kids do. So I think he's going to be absolutely fine. It's a very different time, and he does, like Domhnall said, have amazing family around him, which in our film, when we explore his fame, it's kind of uncharted territory. People hadn't really done it before. Otherwise, I think Daphne and Alan may have rethought that, maybe not Daphne, but definitely Alan would have rethought how they went about it.
I mean, explain, Domhnall, how in the film Christopher Robin becomes this celebrity, because it might be that anyone just picks up the Winnie the Pooh books now and finds them delightful and charming, doesn't really get a handle on the extent to which Christopher Robin's life was. Well, first of all, he became a huge star, and then secondly, really reacted badly to it.
Yeah, he didn't ask for any of it. I think that's the thing, you know. Like Will, even though he's 9 when he's doing the film, has asked his parents if he can go to acting classes, has asked his parents if he can audition for things. That's a different thing than a child having a book written about them using their real name, using their real imagination, and putting it out and just giving it to the world. The world had been very traumatized after World War I, and the books ended up becoming a really safe place for people to go, and that this is what Alan Milne was kind of writing for his boy. And the terrible thing about it was that this safe place became everybody else's safe place, and all of a sudden the world was no longer a safe place for his child, who he'd written it for in the first place. He started to get bullied very badly. He suffered terribly with it and had a lot of resentment towards his parents. There was very, very circuitous ways of coming back into contact with them and, you know, kind of rediscovering any care or love or understanding that they had cared for him and that things had just gotten out of hand. It's a very, I mean, it's really involved story. And I think it very delicately talks about a number of different things.
Yeah. It's the character of Alan Milne that I realised I knew nothing about other than Winnie the Pooh, and I realised, first of all, from what you were saying and how you played in the film, the post-traumatic stress. He comes back from the First World War, how he struggled with that. I knew about the complex relationship with his son, but the fact that he was a well-known playwright and the fact he'd written lots of other stuff. You read his autobiography. Did he resent the fact that he was only really known for Winnie the Pooh?
He didn't seem to talk about it much, but there was definitely an edge there. He had an edge to him anyway, that I think he had probably even before he went to war, but certainly afterwards it was much more in evidence. He had an edge to him, and the books overtook him as well. No, he only wrote 2 of them. with Winnie the Pooh, and they took off in a way that he couldn't control, and all of a sudden people are making fun of him. It's not seen as being very sophisticated. He became a figure of fun in some ways, or people used to pastiche his stuff. And he had been a brilliant, very, very well-known, very well-regarded playwright. He wrote for Punch magazine, and he kind of could, and then he wanted to write seriously about war and the effects of war. And people just wanted either more Winnie the Pooh or to make fun of him for being that guy. And I think he found that very difficult. We touch on it in the film for sure, because the effects on Christopher Robin obviously were much bigger.
And when you go back to Winnie the Pooh, as people will do, I think, having seen the film, they'll maybe buy some extra copies or find the copy that they had when they were young. The thing is that it's still brilliant. That the stories and the characters that he created are wise and warm, and Eeyore is a profoundly sad character. So I think people will they see some of Alan Milne in Eeyore? I mean, did he put some of his negativity into the
That's
donkey?
really funny.
It's very astute of you,
It is. Christopher Robin Milne said that he did. He in one of Christopher Robin's books that he wrote later, which is so interesting that he wrote books himself and went back to the thing which he had loathed so much. He said that he thought that his father had taken his damage and his trauma and his sadness and turned it into something that the world could love. And I think that's deeply emotional.
One of the other reasons I enjoyed the movie was because it's got a house in it, and Domhnall Gleeson enters the house, and it's okay to not be scared.
Yes.
This is a reference
It's not a very scary movie.
No, it's not a very scary movie.
No.
The reference is, of course, to Mother, a small M, exclamation mark. And Darren Aronofsky was on the show just a couple of weeks ago. And I just wanted to mention, I don't know what it was like to be on set, but I can't remember a movie which has been discussed on the show which has been more divisive, where people have either kind of loved it or they've walked out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know you were in Mother.
I know. I crop up
More
pretty
reasons
briefly.
to go see it now. Great.
You haven't even seen it?
No, I thought it only just came out, didn't it?
It is just came out this week. Yeah,
it came out last week, and and you're kind of busy promoting.
It's been a little busy. 2 premieres in like the last. But
That'll be why
I really
didn't make it.
I definitely plan on seeing it. I love those polarizing movies. I love movies that people either love or hate.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, they're one of the ones you want to be a part of. It's funny because critically, those end up being the films that, that get all of the love. Or there's always hate there as well, but like they end up being the extremes. And then out and about, it's like people, like, it's funny, you can spot people who liked Mother. It's a very direct beeline that they make for you when they like a film like that.
They have a certain look in their eye?
They do.
Is it slightly demented?
It's slightly demented and slightly really needs to express to you that I enjoyed it, because obviously some people just hate it so much.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it now.
Explain.
Exactly.
How would you explain it to Margot?
Well, it depends on whether you're interested in what the allegory is supposed to be before you go and see the movie or not. You can close your ears if you want.
Well, don't give it away. Don't spoil it.
No, but they've started talking about it. You see, Darren and Jen have started telling people what it is, and I think that's interesting.
Well, Darren actually in the interview on the show, we did start talking about Mother Earth.
Yes, Mother Nature,
and that Jennifer Lawrence represents the Earth, and
and that they use kind of stories from the Bible almost to kind of explore it. That would be. But I will say that there's no point trying to unpack it all as you watch it. I think it's an experience that you then can talk about afterwards. I think figuring it out as it happens is probably a mistake. It's not there to be figured out. I think it's there to do something to you, and I do think it punches you in the gut quite hard, and I like those movies.
Does that sound like your kind of thing, Margot?
Absolutely. I'm dying to see it. I wanted to see it before, but now I really want to see it.
What do we see you in next, Margot?
I, Tonya.
That's the true life story
of Tonya Harding.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when do we see you as Harley Quinn?
Most likely next year. Not that it would be released next year, but I'm assuming we'll be shooting one of the versions that will involve Harley next year.
I went with my youngest child to a Comic-Con last year. Everyone was dressed as Harley Quinn. It was just fantastic. It was just wonderful to see.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them around.
There's a lot of Harleys. I know. What I loved most is that guys were dressing as Harley. I was like,
oh, nice.
This is wicked, because on every Halloween, every time I dress up, it's always a guy character I dress up as, because they're always the craziest, funnest ones. And then last Halloween, I was like, yeah, the chicks have the craziest, funnest character to dress up as this Halloween, and now you guys want in on this.
That's awesome. My big hope is that people will dress up as Alan Milne.
I think
this
there's
Halloween.
That would
strong possibility.
Those tweeds would look so good, so terrifying on a night out.
It's that kind of Jacob Rees-Mogg look.
Yes, exactly.
Which is completely back in now.
Coming back in, man. Dalston, he looks at home.
And what do we see? I mean, you're in so many movies, Domhnall. What do we...
Sorry, yeah, they've all come out at the same time. I would say I would hope what people see me in next is Goodbye Christopher Robin. I think it's worth seeing. And then after that, Janie Mac, I don't know. You can choose to go and love or hate Mother. American Made is in the cinema at the moment, and then Star Wars is coming out at Christmas time, and I did a comedy called Crash Pad, which is just coming out in America, I think around now.
Where do you find the time?
It's quite astonishing how he manages to Domhnall Gleeson, Margot Robbie, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.